So John's laughing the whole time. He doesn't even know what's happening. I'm like, stop! I kick Brandon out, whose hands are still covered in vomit. I didn't pay attention to that. And I start cleaning it up. We had 3 rolls of paper towel in the room. And we used the first roll on that first part. And so Brandon comes and he's like, oh, it's all clean, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, my hands are still dirty. There's a sink, wash them off. Can you help me? He's like, yeah, dude, I'll help you. He's like, I'm singing, I'm like, rinse and lather, repeat, and like all that. So I go back out there and John just is like sitting cross-legged, and like you'd think he'd like be hating every bit of his life right now, but no, he's still giggling. Like he doesn't stop laughing at all throughout this entire night. And like he starts laughing, it's like and I start laughing like we're laughing back and forth, except neither of us actually laugh like that. So we're just like laughing and giggling and sharing this happy moment while Brandon washes his hands off. And John goes to bed. And it's like 3 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, the night's almost over, right? We're probably good, right? Because I set this alarm for 5 o'clock. I had a wake-up call. I'm like, okay, wake me up at 5 because we have to be ready to go to the tournament and excel. And so I go to bed, I'm like, it's okay, it's 3 o'clock, we're fine. So I start to lay down, and Brandon's like, dude, can we talk? And I'm like, no. He's like, dude, come on, you're my best friend, and you're not a robot. Alright, I guess we'll talk. So we just kind of talked about another heart-to-heart. It lasted a while. It was hard to understand his slurring, not drunkenness. He was sober. And so we had this like little back and forth, and it went on for a while. It was like 4:15 we stopped. And we're like all feeling good and content. And Brandon goes lay down. He goes to sleep. Everything's fine. And I'm like, I'm going to go to sleep too because everything's fine. And so I go to sleep like 4:20 is the last time I checked my iPod, and okay, night time. I'm sleeping on the floor because I'm that good of a friend. There's 2 beds, they get the beds, I get the floor. I'm that good of a guy, everyone. And so I go to sleep at like 4:20, and I wake up at 4:28 because I checked my iPod before looking what's happening. I check my iPod, I'm like, oh, it's 4:28, why am I awake? And I realized what woke me up is there's this like gargling sound, kind of like mouthwash, you know? I'm like, oh no. I look at John, I'm like, John's been the pukaholic of the night. I look at John's fine, he's snoring and everything. And Brandon, I look at him, and he's like in his boxers, and he's just violently convulsing, like not like that because he's skinny and there wasn't like jiggling. He's like violently convulsing. His whole stomach is heaving and changing shapes, like he's about to give birth. And like this next thing, I can't describe accurately, but it's like really hard to describe. So I just kind of look at him, and it starts to happen. And if it wasn't so violently just vile and disgusting in every way, it would be beautiful. It would be just lovely because it's like a fountain. Like he's laying there and just. So I could see like mushrooms from the burger, and I'm like, this is the most disgusting thing. And like I kind of just stand there and like in awe almost of him. And, it starts to crash back down on him, and I'm like, I've heard tales, he's gonna drown. And so I go up there, I flip over, I'm like, no, I'm gonna save your life! And I slap his back, and he's spitting up, and he's like, thanks, man. And like tries to go back to sleep in this just disgusting bed. I'm like, no, get up, you're gonna go take a shower. Not wait, that's... So he's gonna go take a shower, and I'm like, okay, go take a shower. And he's like, okay. He steps in there, and he turns on the water, and he's still wearing his boxers. And at this point, I'm like, I don't even care. They're ruined anywhere, puke's all over him. And he turns it on, and he's like, could you make it hotter? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I turn it up a hot, and I leave, and I just go and survey the damage. And like, all the room is fine on the left side, and then the right side has shit on the ceiling. It's like all over the mattress, like on the chair, on my hopes and dreams. So I like start taking all the sheets off. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm not like the manliest man. So I'm like tearing up. I'm like, this is the end of my life. They're gonna expel me forever. I'm stripping the sheets off, and it's like sinking down into the mattress. By sinking, I mean it's already in the mattress, and I can't just take off the mattress from the bed. You can't do that, can you? I didn't think about flipping it over because I'm stupid, but it was disgusting. And so I go to the bathroom, and I'm like, because I hear the sound. And it's like a really weird sound. I'm like, wondering what it is, and it's like, It's getting louder and louder. What the fuck's going on? I open the door, and Brandon's in the fetal position again, like he has been all the night, curling in a ball, and like I open the door, and there's just so much steam I can barely see them. I'm like, oh no, I just tried to boil my friend like a lobster. I touch the water and it burns my hair. I'm like, shit, I'm sorry, dude, I'm sorry. So I turned on the cold, and I'm like, okay, just get in the shower and I'm gonna go take care of the room, man. And like, and so I go take care of the room again. I look around, and I start cleaning everything up, put everybody's crap in their bags and everything. And then I start to hear another sound. And it's just like, except it's. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I go to the bathroom, and it's too cold for him, and I touch it, and I know why, because I get frostbite. And so, like, I turn it to lukewarm, and I'm like, just stay in there for a couple seconds, get washed off, we're good. And so he stands there for a couple seconds, and he goes back, and like he stands up, like he's standing up, and I'm standing in the doorway, and he's coming towards me, and he's walking like this, and his eyes are like in the back. Like, I could see the back of his, like, eye stems. It was awful. I was like, my friend's dying in front of me. First I tried to boil him, now he's dying some other way. Like, his teeth are going, like, not like that, because that sounds like masturbation. But, like, you know, teeth chatter and stuff, and so they're chattering, and so he's, like, freezing cold, and he looks like he's having a seizure. He's convulsing, not as bad as this before. I'm like, what's going on? And he just reaches out and hugs me, and so like now I'm soaking wet. I'm like hugging him back because I need a hug right now because all this is happening in my future. So we kind of hug it up for a minute, and he's like, dude. I'm like, what? He's like, just don't tell my mom. Don't tell your mom? That's what you... All right, I won't tell your mom. And he's like, you have to promise you won't tell my mom. I don't care if you put me in jail, don't tell my mom. And I'm like, I'm gonna tell your mom, dude. She tell on me, and then whatever. And so I'm like, dude, just go sit in the chair. We're gonna work this out. It's gonna be fine. Go sit in the chair. And so I'm like, I stress, do not lay on the bed that is covered in your own vomit. And I start to make sure the bathroom's all clean. The underwear's in a heap. I saw Brandon's wiener that night. I'm not proud of it, but I did see it. And so, like, he goes there. I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. I hadn't seen his wiener yet. Sorry. He like lumbers towards the chair, turns and lays flat on his stomach on the bed. Like flops into it, and it's disgusting, and it makes a nasty sound. I'm like, you deserve it at this point! So I help him get up, and he's covered in his own crap, and I'm like, take off your freaking washes and get in the shower. I'll make sure it's not too or cut for you. And he's like washing himself up, and he's like crying, and it's very awkward. I'm like, we're back to freaking base one at this point. He's crying again, and John's not laughing, so that's good. I'm like, John, I go in there and I wake him up. I'm like, John, what do we do? The bed's covered in puke. Brandon needs to sober up because we have a tournament in less than 2 hours, and it's a big thing. And so, what do we do? And he's like, I don't know, man. Have you tried telling him you're going to call the cops? And I'm like, shock tactics, that's a real thing, right? That'll just knock him right out of the drunkenness, right? That'll work. And so he's like, yeah, that could work. I'm like, wait, better yet, what if I just scare him to death? I'm going to tell him I'm calling his mom. I'm back at it. And so John's like, yeah, do that. And so John sits up, and he's going to walk in there around me. I'm like, I'm feeling all champion-like. I'm still soaking wet from the hug. And I'm like, Brandon! And I look behind me for John's confidence, and John passed right back out. Didn't even care, just went back to sleep. I'm like, Brandon, here's the deal, pal. I'm still naked, still crying. You need to sober up. I'm going to call your mom. And he's like, no! It was the most pitiful, awful sound. Like, the kid's whole family was being taken from him, and he was being left in the snow, because there's snow outside. I'm just like, I didn't mean it, dude. And he's like, okay. And he didn't do anything. So I'm like, but I am going to call the cops because I have to keep my ground. He's like, no! No, don't! And he starts to run towards the door like he's going to run away, still naked. I'm like, no! And I got in front of the door because our coaches are right across the hall from us. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep. That's what I'm going to do. So he goes, and he sits down, and he goes to sleep. And everything's fine. I've seen the most horrifying events in my life, but it's going to be all right. So I lay down. It's about 4:47. Go to sleep. Making some, feeling comfy. Brandon's sleeping, John's sleeping. I wake up at 5 o'clock to the most evil, satanic sound of all time. The phone. And smelling, hello. And they're like, it's your wake-up call. I'm like, fuck you. And you never ever do that to the nice people at the hotel because they work hard for their money. You be nice to them. But I wasn't because I hated my life and I said, I don't care what you have to say. I'm going back to bed. But I didn't because we had the tournament. So I hang up the phone and we all get our stuff together. Turns out Brandon didn't pack any spare underwear, and his underwear is covered in nasty, and it's soaking wet in a bowl. And so I'm like, where are my underwear, Brandon? Here you go. And so we go downstairs, and the elevator ride smelled like shame and hatred. So we get down there, and we come outside, and the entire team's already fully dressed for the tournament, super ready. They look all look awake.